How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the channel, Sketchy G, for another install video. Today we are installing a Smitty built single compressor air compressor, and here it is right here. So let's break down what we got right here on the table. So of course we got the air compressor, we got a filter that came with it, we got some relays, switches, and a pressure switch, and a few other mounting hardware inside the bag, and then the wiring harness over here. So that's everything that came with the air compressor. I also had to buy separately the air hose kit right here that came with this manifold or this T-fitting, so that we can fit both the switch and an output line right here. We got the chuck, and then I saw this online. Way of Life made this bracket so that I can mount it outside of the vehicle in the wheel well. And then I had to buy these adapters separately. I had to go to the store, a local store, and pick this up right here, this 90-degree fitting. And I bought a bag of these, about 10 of them, because that's the size they came in, or the quantity, so that I can mount this on the T-fitting. And then it has an adapter so that I can get my airline that I also had to get made locally to adapt from this T-fitting to the air chuck over here. And then of course I have some tools that I'm going to use as well. Hopefully I can get this installed today. Then I'm going to air down my 315s that I have to about 20 or 15 psi's, and I'm going to time to see how long it can get up to 35 psi, because that's what I usually run them at. So let's get it started. First thing we're going to be doing is removing the fender. We're going to come down here, remove this push tab, and then we're going to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that hold the fender on. Then we're going to be pulling it off. Now we should be able to just pry the bumper off, or the fender off. I think I broke a few clips, but it's off. So now I got to disconnect the wiring harness for the daytime running light and turn signal. Okay, after about 10 minutes of trying to disconnect a connector, oh my goodness, this is the most difficult connector I think I've ever had to deal with. I'm gonna leave it as is. So right now you can see the fender is just resting on the wheel. Connector is still attached, because I wasn't trying to break it more than I already did trying to disconnect it. 10% rule. I'm only 10% smarter than the equipment I'm using, so clearly I'm a little stupid today. So I'm just gonna leave it as is. There's way more than enough room for me to get anything in the compressor, the mounts, and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna keep moving. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this little mounting point right here for this wire harness, and it just pops right off. And then we're gonna loosen that bolt right there so that we can move this down, because we're gonna use these 3 points to mount our compressor. Then we're going to loosen up this one right here so that we can turn it just like that. And we're going to have it like that. We're going to tighten it back up. Now we're going to work on setting up our air compressor on the mount to get ready to install it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move these bolts, one right here and one right here, so that we can loosen this bracket right here. Now we can bend this just like that. With the mount, you get some hardware, and you're going to put them in these 4 holes right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bolt is going to be coming from the bottom like so, and the mount is going to sit on top of it like that. So you just go ahead and do that, and you're gonna go ahead and install all 4 of them. Now you want to make sure that this part of your compressor is facing the logo. After it's all tightened up, now's a good time to go ahead and install the filter and then put that to the side. Now is also a good time to go ahead and start applying some Teflon tape to all your parts that's going to need it. The switch, my adapter, the T-fitting, and then the air chuck itself. Okay, now with the air compressor, you have these two bolts right here. You're going to take your Allen bit and loosen it up. Don't take it all the way out. Just have it nice and loose, because you're going to need to move that around, as you can see, to get it where you need to get the barrel and everything else once you start mounting it on the vehicle. And then with the bracket kit, you're going to have these little spaces right here. You're going to have two skinny ones and a thicker one. The thicker one is going to go in the top part of the triangle, the top bolt right here. It makes a little triangle. It goes on the top one, and it's an offset, or to set off the bracket from the vehicle itself. So after you get it on those 3 points, you're also going to have a bolt down here at the bottom that you're also going to attach it to on the vehicle. So then you take your hardware and you just start threading it on. You're going to open this up as necessary so you can get to all of the points. So once you've tightened everything down, 1, 2, 3, and the one on the bottom, you're then going to take the air compressor. You're going to raise it up so that it is not making contact with your lines. And also you want to turn it back a little bit so the fender liner can still fit. And then once you feel you have it where you want to have it, you go ahead and tighten this back down. Then you're going to reinstall your 2 screws that you removed earlier. There's going to be a 10mm nut on the bottom that you're going to want to have to loosen up so that you can move this barrel this way, so that this fitting, or the slot, is facing that way so you can run your line. Just loosen it up a little bit and they should be able to turn, and then tighten it back up. Now you can go ahead and remove this, and you're going to thread your T-fitting. So you're going to use a 3/4 wrench and tighten it down. Now that should be about good, because I'm going to put the switch right here, and I'm having my out going this way. We'll install the switch. Now you're just going to need some kind of expandable wrench to tighten it down and get it snug. Now I'm going to install my NPT-JIC adapter right here. I'm going to start routing this cable, and the end goal is I'm going to have my air chuck right here. This hole, there's no drilling required. Hopefully you can see that. It falls in there perfect. All right, so I routed the cable 5/16 on this side, and then the channel lock on this side to hold it, tighten it up. I ordered it way longer than I needed. I think I ordered 50 something inches, and I'm gonna have to do a loop somewhere, but as you can see, I also have this mounted. All I did was take my 3/4 inch wrench to hold this, and then tighten it from the bottom, as you can see. So now, and there it is. So now I'm just gonna zip tie this up to like the frame right here, this little loop, and everything should be good. And I also have this 90-degree elbow coming off of it from a NPT to the JIC, and then just tighten it down right here. And now we're about to get ready to wire it up to the Jeep to the accessory switch. Unless you're running lockers, you don't need this harness right here, which I am not, so I don't need it. So all we're gonna need is a relay and this main cable. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop the hood and route this, roughly route it, so you can see what we got going on. All right, so I already started routing the wire harness. As you can see, this black one is gonna connect to the power for the compressor. And then you're gonna have the red and blue that's gonna connect to the switch. I don't think it matters which direction the one goes, either or, red and blue on the switch. And then these two are if you're running airlockers, which again I am not, so I'm just gonna zip tie them off to the side. Then I routed it up through the fender right here into the engine compartment and zip tied the relay at this point right here. And I'm gonna have the fuse in the same location. Then I started routing it across the engine bay over to the battery and my accessory switch wire location. All right, so what I've done is I've located the wire harness for my auxiliary switches, and I went to the auto store and bought a 4-pin connector, male and female. So I'm gonna attach all 4 of these to one of these wires right here. That way I can have quick access on the other side to connect anything I have or any accessories I have later on down the road. These are all numbered right here in that same order, so that it makes it for easier connection down the road. And they're also numbered on this side as well, so it should make future installations relatively easy going to the auxiliary switch. So for this wire harness, only part I'm going to be using, this would go to the switch. The black is going to go to a ground, and this red one goes to the switch. These other two I'm not going to be using at all, so I'm going to cap these and attach this to my #1 side of this right here. So I'm going to install it on this portion. So after looking at the schematic, I determined that this black wire right here doesn't need to get attached to anything. If I attach it to anything, all it is looping from ground that I might put on the chassis to the ground that's going to the battery. It's a closed, it's one single wire, so it really has no purpose of me putting it right here. As long as, well, this ground right here is connected, I'll be good to go, because this ground really serves the purpose of being the other side of the switch. But because the switch itself is already harnessed into the vehicle and is already grounded from the factory, there is no need for me to attach this ground. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cap 1, 2, 3, secure it all up, and then get ready to install my terminal lugs for my main, ground, and power wires. Okay, so everything is wired up. I got my positive on this side, negative on that side, spliced into one, or connected to one terminal. I got my power connected at this point, so now we're going to start up the vehicle and see if my compressor kicks in. All right. I should be able to hit auxiliary switch 1 and hear the compressor kick on. So initially, I guess it must have flew out, but I had a cap installed right here at this point, but I guess it popped out because of the pressure. So everything kicked off, I don't hear any noises. I do hear a whistle. So I got everything pretty much wrapped up. I figured that the squealing that I'm hearing is not from the air. Something else is going on in the engine compartment that is not because of the air compressor. So that I'm gonna have to figure out. But the air compressor is installed. So let's look at the finished product. So here on this side of the connector is the auxiliary switches that comes with the vehicle that I went ahead and put a connector to. And here is the other side that right now I have my 3 slots for the other 3 auxiliary switches, and then the one right here is attached to the switch for the air compressor itself. So all I have to do is connect this up. And then that'll be good to go. The main power is ran attached to my positive terminal, and the negative is attached right here to the negative terminal. And you can see just did some zip ties to get it looking neat inside the engine compartment. Over to here where we have the relay and our fuse. So with the wiring harness, this was dangling, so I took a zip tie, and there's a little hole on this bracket that we relocated, and I zip tied to this bracket to keep everything out the way. So there's everything as it looks. Everything here is tight. I did the soap and water test, and there was no bubbles, so everything is tight down here. With the line, you can go to any like hose and fitting store in your neighborhood. If you live in a decent place, you should have one around. So I just Googled it. There was one like 10 minutes away from my house, and I just told them, hey, I needed a 55-inch long stainless steel line with the JIC female fittings on both ends, and they were able to get that for me. And that's the same place where I got the elbow from as well that it's attached to. It's a JIC to a NPT 90-degree elbow. So they had it in stock. You can find the stuff on Amazon. I'll try to have links to a majority of what I used in the description below. You can get this line from ARB on Amazon, but it's going to be a little bit shorter. So the one wasn't long enough for what I needed it for, and that's why I got a custom made one for my application. So that pretty much wraps it up. We're going to do the tests to see how long it takes to air up the tire, and I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the fender back onto the Jeep, which is everything is in reverse order of how it was removed. All right, so I'm going to air down this back driver's side tire to 15 psi, and we're going to time it to see how long it takes to get back up to 35. I'm also going to be checking the accuracy of the gauge I bought off of Amazon with the one that's on the vehicle for the TPMS sensors. Okay, so I'm going to use a Smittybilt rapid air deflator to deflate the tires down to about 15 psi. All right, so of course I was having issues, so I went ahead and aired it up, timed it and everything, but forgot to press split on the GoPro. So now had to restart it. I aired it down with the vehicle running, and now I checked, and it is showing 15 psi on the display on the cluster. So now we're going to try this again for a second time. I'll tell you what my first time was, and it should be around the same thing. So this thing is reading about 1 psi off. So right now it's reading at about 16 psi's. So let's go ahead and get this timer started. All right, so you can see that on here right now it reads 35.6 psi's. Let's see what the dash or instrument cluster is saying. Well, sometimes it might take a while to update, but right now it's saying 33 psi. So we're at about 3 minutes on that one. That's weird, because when I did it the last time, it was about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go from 15 to 35. So I did find out that, or I did notice that this fitting right here, and that's the case for majority of these type of fitting, it was leaking a little bit. Right now we'll call it 3 minutes for each wheel to go from 15 to 35. So that's about, all 4 tires, I'm looking at 12 minutes to air it all up, and that's not too bad. I'm just glad I have my own onboard air for the Jeep, and it works. The plan is to have 4 different points on the vehicle, so I can air up all 4 tires at the same time. So plumb or run some lines to some points, probably one over here by each fender, so that I can have like a 2-foot cable to hook up and air up all 4 tires from one single point. That's going to be later down the road, but for right now I'm happy with how everything turned out. I just got to work on getting this thing fixed and updated, but other than that I'm happy with it. So before we go, let's go ahead and see if the instrument cluster, if the gauge cluster updated on the PSI. Yep, sure did. So you can see we're at 36 PSIs. So that tells me that the gauge was pretty accurate, because it was reading 35.6 PSIs, close to 36. So it's an accurate gauge. I just got to change out that fitting, and then I think we should be good to go. And that probably knocked a little bit of time off of that 3 minutes that it took. Probably took off a few seconds off of that, which maybe brought it down a little bit to what it was the first time I did it. So we'll keep checking, and I'll keep y'all guys updated. And of course, always good practice when you're finished, go ahead, turn the compressor off, let the air out the system till it dies down before you go ahead and disconnect anything. All right, it's just always a little bit safer. And then also with the cold weather, you don't want any air up in your tanks for it to freeze over and cause problem later on. So always let the air out of your compressors and their lines. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Hey, if you want to, share the video, and thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.